I'm not buying the Anthony Richardson hype train. I've never really bought it. I feel like I've kind of been one of the thought leaders, not against Anthony Richardson, but just that I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't even think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a good football player. There's a difference, but I don't know that Anthony Richardson plays the quarterback position well enough to beat Georgia. And so I want to dive a little bit into his numbers here and talk about what happened last year against the Dogs when they played in Jacksonville. Obviously, it's in Jacksonville every year. Maybe not for long, but I don't know. I don't get it when I see that he's like a top 3 prospect on these draft boards. I don't really get it. I didn't get the preseason like sleeper Heisman hype. I don't, I don't get why we focus on like one 70-yard touchdown run or like one big run per game and social media freaks out about Anthony Richardson. And I have no personal hate for Anthony Richardson at all. I have nothing against Anthony Richardson. I hope he has a great life. And, I hope that he has a successful football career. But I don't, because I don't wish an anti-successful career against anybody. I just don't get it. And I don't understand comparing him to all these Heisman Trophy winners and like putting that pressure on his shoulders. Like the national media has like anointed him some crazy prospect, and I don't see it. What I've watched is I watched a guy struggle to play the quarterback position, and I've watched a guy make a lot of crazy plays, and I see a very talented arm, but I don't see someone that's going to step up in the pocket, make the right decision at the right time, make the right throw at the right time, make the accurate throw when the accurate throw needs to happen, push the ball downfield with your arm. I've never seen him do that. I've seen him make crazy deep throws. I've seen him have a lot of zip, and I've seen him be a crazy athlete, and I've seen him be an impressive runner. But I've never seen him do that. The things that make for a great quarterback. Got numbers pulled up. Let's start with this year. So Utah. I'm gonna go game by game to just kind of discuss some of his numbers. No touchdowns in the air. He had 3 rushing touchdowns against Utah. That's no joke, dude. This is no joke. Anthony Richardson is the real deal on the ground, okay? 11 carries for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Kirby talks about how it's not the design runs, it's the scramble situations, it's the improvising situations where Anthony Richardson can really kill you on the ground. And I think he's right. And what I've watched, at least, and I've watched a good bit of Florida this year, and I watched a good bit of that Utah game. Impressive win at home against a really good Utah team. 17 for 24. This is one of his better passing games, and it's below average. One of his better passing games is below average. 17 for 24, 168 yards passing. 70% completion percentage is pretty solid, but 168 yards, you get the win, and the win matters. Next week, you lose to Kentucky, who I don't think Kentucky's anything special. They're good, but they're not special. And they do have a good defense. That's probably the best defense they've played. 14 for 35. That's 40% passing. 143 yards. He had even less yards. 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. On the ground, he had 6 attempts for 4 yards. So what do you see against Kentucky? You see he wasn't effective on the ground at all. 4 yards on 6 carries. And you see them struggle to get through the air. They lose to double digits at home against the Wildcats. 14 for 35 is atrocious. 143 yards is not going to cut it. It's not being effective. And if you're not supplementing that with your running ability, you're not going to win games, because at that point, you don't have a quarterback that's winning your games. Following week, USF, a fight against South Florida, a fight that shouldn't have been a fight. A 3-point win at home against South Florida. 10 for 18, 55%. Not going to cut it. 112 yards. Not going to cut it. 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's 2 weeks in a row we had 0 passing touchdowns, but 2 picks. This time on the ground, 7 for 24. That's not great. That's not even really good. So, moving on. Here's the big test. You're forced to throw a lot. This, to me, was by far the most impressive Anthony Richardson game. All right, this was pretty good. And this was against Tennessee in Knoxville, and you lose by 5. This is his most impressive game, and to me, Florida's most impressive game this year. 24 for 44, not great, 55%, but you had 453 yards in the air. You had a positive touchdown to INT ratio, 2-1. And he was effective on the ground. He had 2 rushing touchdowns on 60 and 62 yards on 17 carries. You saw him be effective both ways. They didn't get the job done, and I think Georgia's better than Tennessee. But can he do that against Georgia's defense? Tennessee's defense is not Georgia's defense. Tennessee's defense is not Georgia's defense. And so I'm very, very skeptical that Anthony Richardson can put on this game and beat Georgia in both the air and the ground. And I'm very, very skeptical that he does it through the air. In fact, I'm highly, highly doubtful that he does that. So you move on to October. They destroy, Eastern Washington. It's Eastern Washington. He's 8 for 10. He throws 10. They're dominating. He has a positive. So he's only had a positive touchdown interception ratio twice in 7 games. So he has the 240. I'm not discounting this game. It's good. 8 for 10, 80%, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he does have the pick. Okay, but then you get to Missouri. Now, Missouri had a good defense, but Stetson Bennett still had, I think, almost 300 yards-ish against Missouri, and you barely, you beat Missouri by a touchdown. Now, Georgia, I'm not discrediting what happened. Georgia struggled against Missouri as well, but Anthony Richardson, you look at the numbers, 8 for 14 for 66 yards. He had 45 yards on the ground, a touchdown and a pick. That's not going to cut it. None of these games on here are going to cut it for him to beat Georgia. Who has Georgia lost to at the quarterback position in the last few years? Let's name some of the guys. Bryce Young, Mac Jones, right? Mac Jones, Joe Burrow, Kyle Trask. These are all guys in the NFL, whether they're a starter or a backup. And Bryce Young will be in the NFL. And he's a Heisman quarterback. You lost to, it's no joke. Sam Ehlinger, NFL quarterback. Actually, he's now an NFL starter. That's what it takes to beat Georgia. All right? It takes NFL talent at the quarterback position to beat Georgia. What I have had a hard time understanding is, how does this equal NFL talent? Physicals matter. Measurements matter. I know the measurements matter a lot to NFL scouts, but we've seen that happen to where the measurables don't matter. It didn't matter with Jamarcus Russell. I know it's a very, very niche example. And this is more about, it's really not about Anthony Richardson's NFL career. If Anthony Richardson has a great NFL career, I don't care. It's me being very, very skeptical of him being able to beat Georgia as a quarterback, because last year you saw him have the 3 turnovers, the 2 picks, and the pick 6 to Nakobe Dean was atrocious. It's bad. Good quarterbacks don't make that throw. So that's kind of my analysis on Anthony Richardson. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying I haven't seen his capability of doing it. And outside of the Tennessee game and the Eastern Washington game, where I thought he had impressive stat lines, they're really bad. Through the air specifically, they're really bad. And when he's not making impact on the run and he's not making impact through the air, they're losing or they're barely winning. Anthony Richardson is going to have to have a masterclass game, or Georgia is going to have an awful game, I think, for Georgia to lose this ball game. My take, make sure you're looking at the links down below. DAWGSTRUCTION, DoorDash, dogpost.com. Make sure you're going on all our social media sites. And we'll see you at Paloma Park on Friday before Tennessee. I believe that's November 4th during their happy hour. We'll see you there. What's your take on Anthony Richardson? Was I too harsh? Let me know down below.